you're looking for a panel about pitching your web series, you are in the right room. My name's Tim Street. I am the Vice President of Mobile Video for M-Dialogue. We're a company that enables folks that are already serving commercials on TV or on the PC. We enable them to deliver commercials on the iPad, the iPhone, Android, Roku, and other connected devices using their current AdOps workflow. I'm also on the board of directors for the International Academy of Web Television. And one of the events that we do on a semi-regular basis is a producers group called Pitching Your Web Series. And this particular panel is a variation of what we do. We bring in producers from the IAWTV, and they pitch their web series to the whole group, and then we give them feedback on that web series. So they're able to not only hear if their web series is a good idea, but they also get feedback on their actual pitch. So today we have two pitching producers that randomly both have the same first name. So we'll kind of play this like we're either a studio, a network, a sponsor, somebody who's interested in web series in one way or another, and we're going to pretend like we're being pitched to by these producers. So I'm going to let these producers introduce themselves, and then once they pitch, we're going to, I kind of want to do this, we aren't set up the way that we normally would be, so there's going to be a little bit of up and down for our panel, but I'll go ahead and introduce our panel right now. I want our panel over here so that they can see the videos and the PowerPoint presentation that's put together. So starting off on the far end, Brian Rodda, if you could stand up, please. And there's Brian. Brian will get to talk a little about what he does when he comes up here on the panel. Each of the panelists will introduce themselves. David Beebe. Amber J. Lawson. Amber J. She's working. She's texting. You're trying to tweet. Oh, there we go. Good idea. Betsy Flanagan. And Bernie Sue. Great. All right. So first up, we have someone by the first name of Jenn.
Hey, so I'm Jenn Page. I've actually done a few web series, but never really anything serious. I've kind of been the let's just do it, make our own thing, have fun. So this is a little overwhelming, won't lie. But our show is My Stupid Heart, and it's basically an 8-act movie-style comedy. So it's 8 episodes, 11 minutes each, with all the romantic comedy elements that you would ever want in your web series. You know, the funny, the heart-jerking, tear-jerking moments. But our series begs to ask that question, how can a girl who's played every character learn to play the hardest character of them all, herself? So this is Riley. You gotta meet Riley. She's adorable, she's charismatic, she is the type of girl that every guy would easily fall in love with. The problem is Riley doesn't know this herself. She doesn't believe in herself. So instead, she spends her entire single life trying on costumes, trying to become something that every boy would want. You know, the guy of her dreams. What does he want? She becomes that. So, you know, if the guy is a rocker, then she's the ultimate rock star. If he's a country boy, then she's as cowgirl as they can be. But of course, none of this works, because how can you have a relationship where you're always faking? I mean, you can't be like the British rock star if you're the girl from the Midwest who can't sing to save your life. So all that changes though, because our web series starts today when she meets Tommy Jack. And she feels like Tommy Jack is a boy of her dreams because he too is a chameleon. The only difference is he puts on characters to make the world a better place. He wants to help the less fortunate. So here's this great guy that she thinks is her perfect match, but she can't figure out who should she be to get Tommy to like her because he's so many different people himself. So she confides in her best friend, Alan, who is the voice of reason in the show. He's the guy who, will do anything to make Riley happy. And you see that throughout a lot where he does things he really doesn't want to do, but he does them anyway. Because of course he has a secret crush on Riley, because what romantic comedy doesn't have that guy, right? And the problem is he tells her, you need to be yourself. Riley doesn't know what this means. She doesn't believe that. She doesn't think anybody would want her that way. So that's where the comedy ensues. Every episode, she tries a bigger costume, a grander scheme, until she finally hits rock bottom. She loses her best friend. She loses the boy of her dreams. It's in that moment where she's at the lowest point, where she has to find that courage to be herself. And our goal of the show, and almost everything I do with like my movies or series or whatever, is reach out to women in hopes that women can connect with Riley and that women can, find in themselves the courage to be themselves. Like if we hope that if you're watching the show and you realize you're enough, like whoever you are enough. Some of our goals for this project are, obviously, we'd love to find a home on some platform. We know the Frisky.com, they did Marry Me, and it went really well. One of our biggest thing, though, would be a dream, is to be part of a major network site. So we would hope that Lifetime or Fox, as they start to create original content and put original content on their shows or on their sites, that we would be part of that. I mean, we fit really well with the Drop Dead Diva crowd, the New Girl crowd, things of that nature. And of course, it could be really fun to get some kind of deal with something like Match.com, because what better way to promote your dating site than to have some funny videos of what to never, ever do, ever. Our audience is, romantic comedy moviegoers looking for a weekly love fix. Even you guys, we know you do it secretly. But of course, women ages 18 to 49, that's our basic demographic. Some of our marketing thoughts were that we could have a lot of vlog-style videos with Riley ranting, which when you see the little trailer we created, that'll make a little more sense. We also have ideas for Facebook and Twitter where we would just put up Riley dating advice that you should never take, ever, under any circumstance. And then some cross-promotion is one of the big things. Our show is going to have a lot of independent band music. Even though you can see in the picture, we have some of the music videos of the bands I've been working on actually in the posters behind them. Bands could promote us as we promote them, that kind of stuff. For sponsors, it's funny because we keep going back to Match.com because we're sort of that hip dating website, but really, I think any hip female product, we really like Dove. We think Dove would get on board with us because we have that, be yourself, be a real woman, don't try to be something you're not going on. So I think they would love either product placements in the show, ads and commercials for, on the show. Great product placement opportunities is for coffee, because Riley's super hopped up on coffee all the time. So she's always drinking coffee. So it could be, Coffee Bean or some smaller coffee shop, somebody like that. Also, Riley's a huge cyber stalker. It's how she figures out where her guy is all the time, knows everything going on. So something like TargetWoman.com might be on board to be product placement in the show. The other great thing about our show is that we have this opportunity for tons of name guest stars, because every week you have these flashbacks of her failed attempts in the past as costume characters. So you could put, guest stars in those roles. Of course, you have the moving forward guest star roles. We'd love to do a full season download pass kind of thing from iTunes, self-generated website. But we also think that because of the name factor, if we make that happen, we could put this together as a feature film and sell it overseas that way. But I think none of this really, all this will make a lot more sense, I think, if you meet the star of our show. So before we wrap this up, we're gonna let you meet Riley Holiday.
True love doesn't exist.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm just ordered a cinnamon roll, so I can't pay attention because I'm I'm waiting for my cinnamon rolls. A cinnamon roll. I like dating. I'm super awesome at it. Dude, I have mad shred skills. I curled the 10-5x5 last night. And went for Obama. I like Obama. I don't know politics. It's not a good subject. I know. I'm sorry.
Have you gone mad, woman? Get off my bloody roof.
Don't be frightened, dear boy. This is how I always travel. I was in Cambodia, and I guess when I decided to get into nutrition, because you eat really healthy in Cambodia, there's all these fruits everywhere, so that's why I'm working for Jenny Craig. But then I quit, so I'm working at Weight Watchers, because I saw Jennifer Hudson, I believe, or whatever she sings. I like her songs.
Blimey, I sing here all the time.
These pipes are bloody gold. She sings a great voice, American Idol. She's great. I'm so glad. Did she win that? I think she won that. I love her. She's like big and proud, but now she's small and proud. Biz Milda, no, we will not let him go. Let him go! I saved the pandas probably single-handedly. I went to China like last year and I held the panda. It was like the best experience of my life. I love China. I love Chinese food. I love Panda Express. Like Panda Express, I love Panda Express. I have orange chicken. Let him go! Let him go!
Could just try being yourself.
Don't be crazy. I got a pen on my face. Just got a pen on my face, and I'm not big. It's not a big deal. It's hard. I always have a pen on my face. What's happening to a writer? I like Karen Sex and the City, but I'm not. I'm more like Samantha. I'm studying Latin right now, so I'm trying to write in Latin. It's really hard to write in Latin. It's like a dead language or something. I can't. I study the Bible. I'm not religious. I'm a little religious. If you want to celebrate Easter, you should just go into a cave and try and break out. I'm really hungry. I've had like 18 muffins today. It's like I'm a little hopped up because I'm gluten free, so I shouldn't have them. So I'll probably like pay for it later. It's disgusting. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tell you that. I should probably like run. I have to go a scoot. You know, I take the bus. I'm green. It's a bicycle, but then I fell off and I never got back on. So I should probably take the bus now. So I'll see you around. I should probably go. Okay.
Let's bring our panel up here, and are you going to be here? I need to use a chair. That'd be great. We need one more chair here. Oops. Ooh, we have a water spill. I'll clean up, please. All right. So I'm going to share the mic with you for a second. So you're going to get quizzed. There you go. All right. Let's get everyone situated in here. All right, let's start with Bernie Sue while we're still getting settled. Bernie, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Bernie Sue. I'm a writer-producer of web series. I'm more on the creative side, and I pitched and sold series to studios before. And I did a show called Compulsions. It won a Streamy 2 years ago, and I'm doing the upcoming adaptation of the Pride and Prejudice for the YouTube format coming up in March. So. Yes.
Bernie is also the inspiration for this particular session that we do. Bernie started the writers group for the International Academy of Web Television, and it's a similar format where writers will bring in a script for a web series, and then actors will read that script in front of a group of folks, and then we give the writer feedback on the scripts. And so it's been a really popular thing that we do at the IAWTV, and that kind of inspired us to do this Pitching Your Web Series panel. Next up, we have Betsy Flanagan. Betsy, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Betsy Flanagan. I am the Vice President of Social Media Strategy at Wells Fargo Bank, and we are a group within the bank that advises our 80-plus lines of business and product groups on all kinds of experiential marketing, social media, any kind of experimental thing that they may want to be doing, especially with regards to new technologies.
Brian Rodda.
Hi, I'm a boutique publicist based in Los Angeles. I've helped promote many different web series, most notably in the last year, Dating in the Middle Ages, Husbands, and currently Whole Day Down.
Thank you. David?
Moving a little slow this morning. Forgive me. David Beebe. I head up digital at a company called Fishbowl Worldwide Media, which is a company that's started by Vinda Bone and the creator of America's Funniest Home Videos. We develop and produce content for all platforms. We have a TV division. On the digital side, we buy, invest, develop, and produce all kinds of web series, both scripted and unscripted. We have a show on Yahoo right now called Ultimate Proposal, which is their #1 show in their women's slate they just launched. On YouTube, we have a show, Cute Win Fail, which we've been doing for about 2 years, hosted by Toby Turner and produced by Phil DeFranco. And then we'll be launching, in partnership with YouTube, at the end of this month, a pets channel. So I'm always looking for programming to buy from producers for all of our platforms.
And Amber J. Lawson.
Hi, I'm Amber J. Lawson. I'm the former head of content for AOL. Over the summer, I founded a company called Transforming the World Through Comedy, which is a multi-platform, multi-city comedy event which raises funds for catalytic philanthropies. And I'm also a partner in the Opportunity Management Company. Here, I am the chairman of the IAWTV Awards.
All right, Jen, let me have you come back up. And let's start out with, well, first off, let me get you right over here. And I'm curious, so you mentioned, can you guys still hear me? You mentioned that you're interested in getting onto a network. That's your big
Like a
dream.
network website would be awesome.
Network website. Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to go to Amber first. Amber, if you can give us some feedback.
She's actually right on in that, you know, Fox and et cetera are building out a lot of more original content. I have to say that I felt this skewed younger than the demo you had outlined. And so I was thinking more like a Lockers, which you should check out. It's a very interesting...
Lockers with a Z.
Lockers with a Z. Who is doing original content, very high quality original content, and it's incentive-based programming. So it's something interesting to look at. In regard to network, I mean, I think there's always an opportunity if you build an audience that is strong enough that demands going to television, starting from that place to begin with is always smart, no matter where you can build that audience from. I find networks to be a bit of a walled garden, though, and not allowing you to go reach an audience where they may live, like Frisky or other places like that.
I would say that the network is the last place you should try to take it to.
Okay.
In fact, I would take it off. I think you have a better play at partnering with a brand.
Okay.
More of a brand entertainment play. And the reason I was at ABC.com for 7 years, and we tried to do originals, and they just don't work at the network level because the network, as a company, is not focused on it. All of the short form programming on network sites is derivative content of shows.
Yeah, we're noticing that.
Because the whole purpose is to, drive everything back to the network.
Fox is doing a whole new
They're trying.
push towards it.
But we shut our digital studio down. ABC, NBC shut theirs down. Fox is still trying something. So.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting. This is very comparable to dating in the Middle Ages for me, because when I saw this, I instantly thought this is like dating the Middle Ages, but for a younger demo. To echo what Amber said, and I would agree with Amber. I think the demo doesn't go as far as 49.
Okay.
I think you're probably like.
I think you're 13 to
Yeah, definitely.
35 maybe.
I was thinking 35 because that's my age, and I was like, I would watch it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely, and which is great. I mean, that's where you want to go, because I think, especially if you're just going to self-publish, you could find an audience on YouTube in a way that a show like Dating in the Middle Ages had a hard time doing, because it was skewing older.
Okay.
It was skewing for, more like a middle-aged woman demographic, and it's harder to find them online. That audience is building, but I still think it has a long way to go. And in terms of like a digital sort of studio, I don't know if what their thoughts are on scripted, but what came to mind for me was omg.yahoo.com.
Okay.
Because it's sort of more of a popular based, it's Yahoo, and I've had meetings with one of the executives over there, and they are getting into funding for original content, but I feel like it's more lifestyle based. It's not as much scripted, but 2012 is going to be a big year for scripted, in my opinion. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. So I think it's a good time
Is that a quote line?
We're recording this.
Yeah.
It's locked in.
I think this year, you heard it here first, I think this year is a huge potential to be a big year for scripted online, and so I would look at Yahoo. That's what initially came to my mind.
Okay.
Just to repeat, the question is about getting on a network.
What's your feedback on the show?
Oh, yeah, I would agree that it's definitely, it seemed like it would skew to a younger demographic. And in terms of targeting or looking for a sponsor for it, I mean, that's what I can really speak to, is, so, you might look at a big company like Wells Fargo and think, okay, they could, certainly our customers would watch this. I would urge you to look a little bit more specific in terms of we're a very decentralized company, and what that means is that each product line, each line of business has their own budgets and makes their own decisions. So yes, we do make decisions as a company, but the chances that the company as a whole would invest in web video is fairly small, just because the dollars that we need to put at work, we need to buy in high quantity. But there definitely are smaller demographic, or smaller lines of business or groups that are targeting smaller demographics or, smaller product lines that could be a really good fit. And so I would urge you, when you are looking for a sponsor, to think along those lines. So for example, this did seem to me to skew younger, so maybe our student group might be a good fit. So that's just kind of one way to think about it.
That makes sense, yeah.
And then also in terms of whatever group you are trying to target, I would look at what other companies are targeting that same demographic, and then figure out, okay, who is advertising to that demographic, and then look at, okay, are they doing anything experimental? Are they doing anything that's non-traditional? Because they would be potentially good targets for you.
Okay.
Betsy, you mentioned the student line product.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So we have, 85 plus lines of business. So, like checking would be a line of business, credit cards would be a line of business. But then we also have student loans, which is a line of business, student credit. Sorry. So in addition to specific products, we also have certain demographic groups that we are targeting, and student is one of them.
Okay.
Within the student category, we have multiple products that target students. So student checking, student credit card, student loans, renter's insurance. And so we have a segment manager for student who has her own budget and looks at things like this. So that's what I mean.
Great. And Bernie Sue?
I'm critiquing the story, or so we're doing that section?
What do you feel about the web series?
Okay, so I like the concept a lot. Connecting it to a network and a brand, I feel like there's a step you need to take closer to it, because right now it feels very indie, almost hipster. And that to me is independent, and like when you're connecting to network and studio, that's a leap toward the mainstream. And I think there needs to be kind of a mainstream hook to this series somehow, which I didn't really see on what was presented or in the trailer. What I saw was obviously a very charismatic, cute girl who looks like she's very magnetic, and we can watch her and do all these great things. But I couldn't figure out what your elevator pitch really was. I was just trying to think in my head, and I think you needed to do too in this case for our pitch, but I think you'll need that elevator pitch going forward in the future if you're trying to pitch it to network, if you're trying to pitch it to brands, because they're gonna want to go like, all right, we see it, we see the billboard, we see the tagline, that hook that's gonna come in and sell the show. Okay. So I would like you to go that direction. If the goal is to go network and brand, if you said yourself at the beginning of this pitch that you did a lot of work yourself, and that seems to be going well for you, and it feels like, being familiar with some of the work I've seen you do, it does feel in the kind of the Jenn Page mold, which is great. It's got this cute charm to it, and if you're going to go to that separate level to go mainstream and kind of bring in these other dollars. Then I think you need to it needs a tweak.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
It does. I'm not exactly sure what the tweaking would be at this point.
Well,
but-
I guess, for example, I don't know. Okay, you can keep going.
Yeah, you can keep going.
All right, so an example that I thought of was like, okay, the character isn't grounded for me yet. Like, I see a girl who's just around, so I don't really get a sense of what her age is. You know, like is she like, and this kind of goes back to the demographics that everybody's echoed here. I don't know where she is in her life.
Okay.
Like, is she 16 or is she 25?
Okay.
You know. And if she's 25, it means young professional. If she's 16, that means high school, you know, like dreamy, teeny bopper type thing, like Pretty Little Liars era, where everything is about like their high school life. But I don't get a sense of that here at all. So if you grounded her somewhere into an age group or a profession or whether it be student, whether it be party entertainer.
I
right?
actually thought about putting the profession in the pitch, but I felt like it was just adding too much. So you're saying no, add it in.
I think it helps us figure out what her age is. Because I don't think if you asked 5 of us on this panel what her age is, we would give you a completely different answer.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, Jen, let me stop you just for a second here. Give us the elevator pitch.
That's been something we've been struggling with because I feel like the show for me is there's so many levels to it that even getting to the point of having some kind of summary has been a struggle. So I think that that's the next step, and for me is to come up with that.
So does everyone here know what an elevator pitch is? Elevator pitch? For anybody that doesn't, it's just saying what the show is in a very succinct way in the time that it would take to do an elevator ride. So in that short amount of time, you're able to say, it's a show about a guy who lives in New York. He's a stand-up comedian. He has these wacky friends, and they don't really do anything except get into trouble. But it's really funny. So it's coming up with that short thing that explains what it is, and not only what it is, but where it's going to go. One of the things that I didn't get out of it was I didn't get a sense of what her overall problem was and where it's going to head in the future. Is it an overall story that's going to carry on and on and on, or is it a problem of the week? And one of the things that we talked about a lot in our writers group and in our producers group is that right now, the internet and doing a web series, we're all, a lot of us are of the mindset of, oh, we need to do something dramatic like The Sopranos, or we need to come up with this long story that plays out over time. But what's really popular is a problem of the week type thing. So you think about the early days of television when you had a show like Bewitched or My Favorite Martian. It was a sitcom where that was set up, but every episode was a problem of the week. So that's something else.
Well, we definitely, like we said, we're an 8-act movie structure, so there's sort of the problem of each episode. It's like that next act, what happens into that act, what happens into that act, until eventually you hit your low point, and then...
And do you need to have watched the previous episode to know what's going on in this episode?
I think you do. I think it plays like a feature film.
That's a potential problem in the web series world, right? It's just a hurdle. I mean, you can build a bigger audience if you don't have to have that.
Right, which is something I've never been, even in major TV network shows, I'm always drawn to the arc, so it's probably something I won't.
But the good news about that is where I see people pick into, latch onto series. I find programming strategies where you are releasing the entire series. You're not expecting people to come back week after week because frankly you can't find it. Or don't remember because it's not programmed like television. So you could get hooked in on episode 3 and go back and watch the entire thing. I find myself doing that in Netflix and on Hulu all the time. So I don't think that's a problem. I really like the opportunity to have dating solutions and having it more interactive where women can actually evolve with her. I think there's big value in that, and that's how you build a community that actually cares about your show, about your character, and about her outcome, like the success. And they're going to be your proselytizers out in the world that will do your work for you. And so you want to take as much advantage of that as possible. Dating is a hot topic. People want to figure out how to find their true love, and if with each episode there's a top 5 list of things she learned or don'ts or do's, or whatever. I think that easy supplemental content that helps you attract audiences in different ways. Did you take a picture?
David, do you have anything on the interactivity of it? Any notes on interactivity?
I would echo what Amber said, I guess, and especially if you're going to pitch it to like a Match.com or something, they're going to want more than just video around it. Whether it's as simple as polls or voting or something like that. Okay. The other thing I was going to say is a place to consider looking at potential buyers, and it's just for anyone in the room that has content, is go through the list of the 100 or so channels that YouTube just invested in, or look at the production companies behind them, because about 80-90% of them don't have content. Okay. And they're out in the marketplace buying stuff up.
For real, yeah.
They are. And look at, including us, but you look at the comedy channel, since that would fit in here. So there's dating channels, there's lifestyle channels. Everyone needs content to fill those channels, and those are all launching in this week, 6 months.
Okay.
It's a great place.
David, if she tweaked it to be about a girl and her pets, would she be talking to you?
She would. I do have a place, and I'm going to wait for Tim to ask the question at the end of the panel.
She's no longer a girl, it's now a dog. That always works, right?
Brian?
I had another thing that popped into my mind, actually. I love that you put Match.com on there, because I actually reached out to Match.com for dating the Middle Ages, and to little success. But one of the places I found a little bit of inroads in, and actually this also speaks to character and specificity, is the Spark Network, which owns JDate.
Okay.
So I think there's an opportunity there, like maybe she's like a young Jewish girl, and if you like little things like that could tweak very specifically to, it's like it's a derivation of Match, and the Spark Network has like multiple dating websites, but the biggest of which is JDate. Okay. But that's another venue, I think, if you're going to go down sort of like a huge online company, that I would look into.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually teeing off that along those lines, there are lots of big companies that are just figuring out social. They may not totally get it, and they may not totally get web video. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was suggesting earlier, not only do you want to look at companies that are already trying to reach the demographic in other ways, but ideally in some kind of non-traditional way. Okay. That to me is a clue that they're thinking a little bit outside the box. They're open to new ideas, they're open to trying new things. The other potential thing that you could do is most big companies have agencies. You could also try to pitch the agencies. So that's another way, because they then essentially are always looking for ideas that they can turn around and pitch to their big company clients. And so you essentially get more leverage in terms of pitching to them.
Okay.
I would say, just to interject and hop in on that, the more you can come in with solved in a way that I know you're good at, it's great content, I'm already sold on that, that it's going to attract an audience, that you know how to bring me an audience, the easier it is for me to say yes and justify a spend.
Yeah,
Bernie?
actually, sorry, I just want to say one other thing, which is, that's a really good point, which is, in addition, if there's any kind of angle that is defendable, so maybe you have a distribution channel, like, I forget somebody, Transit TV, who is that recommended that on the last panel that we were on? There was someone who was pitching web series that was targeting
Transit TV.
Yeah, that was targeting Hispanics, and someone suggested Transit TV as a distribution channel, which, if you were able to secure a distribution channel where you knew you were going to have audience, that is a very attractive thing to somebody who has money and wants to reach that audience, because it's a defendable position.
Okay.
Bernie?
So going back to what Tim just kind of brought up when he was speaking about the series potential, I know you pitched it as an 8x11, which means 8 episodes, 11 minutes each, 88 minutes, which is a 90-minute movie, which sells internationally in foreign markets and everything like that, which is great. That's fine. I feel that if, I'm going to give you some karma here. When you go out and have meetings about this, Someone somewhere is going to ask you about long-term series potential. They're going to say, we don't want an 8 by 11. We want 11 by infinity. You know, like we want 11 minutes of 100 episodes. So how is this concept going to be a 100 episode series? Because if it's a 100 episode series, it fits better to everything we just talked about brand connection, because your brands can come in, brands can come out, audience building, and all that stuff. And if you have, if you construct the series well enough to, you don't need to be a breakout hit from episode 1. You can grow your audience, and the show can evolve and develop as we go along. I think you're going to need to have, at least in the back of your mind, how that story is going to play out over 60 episodes.
I've got that. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
Cool. So now let's talk about the pitch itself. What are some things that you liked about the pitch? What are some things that you thought were a disconnect? Amber?
It's a great question, Tim. Thank you for asking. Actually, out of the, I kind of, we went into it really fast for me, and so I was like having to settle in, and I really, until I saw her kind of edgier side, which was really later in your slides, I really thought she was maybe 14, 15. Okay. I thought she was young, and this was a high school tale of like boys, and like, what are they about? What do they do? I'm gonna wear bunny ears today and be a bunny. So that setting up the world and I think you said it best. Was it Bernie? Like where she is in her life, like. Okay. What is she an 18-year-old high school student, or is she a 25-year-old? Like,
it's that elevator pitch. Getting that down, I think, is really going to help you.
So that was my biggest thing out of the gate, is really understanding that, and then I'll always go to audience numbers. How are you going to get audience numbers? I think you touched on it a lot, in little bits that made me know you were aware of that for sure, but. Like, I want to get down to it.
So when you say, like, in the pitch, like, what's the sort of, like...
Speak to your mic, Jen.
When you say, like, how am I going to get audience numbers, what's an example of...
Well, so I would say this. So there is a growing market of females that from 15 to 25 who are demanding dating content right now, and there is no content out there. There's about 30 billion of them, and they really spend all of their time online consuming chick content, and there isn't any, and this is the answer to that. Okay. And I'll go, oh, really? Okay. That sounds great. Okay. And I say, here are all the social networks that they're on, that they watch these places, that they watch. Like, you did reference the Oxygen thing, or was that her talking about Jennifer Hudson? And that was a funny rant. But it's just kind of like, I'm excited. Oh my God, we need this. Clearly, we need this. Let's buy it.
Right.
That makes sense.
David?
I would say up front, sort of the elevator pitch.
Okay.
I don't think it was in there. I might have missed it.
It wasn't.
The integration opportunities for brands.
Kinda, yeah.
A little bit in there about I remember the bands and stuff, but I was just saying in general, more ways to integrate product.
Okay. I think for me, that's
Amber
actually
needs a date,
the question
by the way.
for you would be, because we put it, and I had that struggle of what's talking about it too much versus breezing over it.
Show specific examples. So one thing that you did that was great, rather than just saying I'm going to target a network site or a brand site, you put examples like Match.com.
Okay.
Or specific networks, which gets people like me that are buying web series ideas. Because we're always working with brands and distributors, and it's when it's very general, it might not trigger something with me. But the pitch itself, like you giving the pitch, I thought you did a great job. Lots of great energy and enthusiasm for the project. So, because that was good. I've seen a lot of people pitch stuff and they're like dead.
Brian?
Almost dead. Horrible. So good energy.
I'll echo that. I love the outfit. It's working for you.
Thank you.
Of course. Fashion. No, it's important.
Let's end there.
Dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. And you're dressing for the job you want.
Thank you.
Kudos there. And I love the PowerPoint. It's clean. You know, it looked professional. I like that it's on binder paper. Actually, I think that's sort of echoes. But you know, like Bernie was saying, it has that indie feel. It's like this is her journal that she wrote down. You know, one of the things that I guess just for me that I would tweak personally that I've noticed. Two things. One, I wouldn't release the episodes bi-weekly. I would do them once a week, just because I think personally people need time to let like an episode marinate, and we're as much as web television is its own thing, it's also watched by people who watch television, and people are used to watching something come out on once a week.
Okay.
So for me, that's my personal point of view. I think you'll have more success, and it also gives you time.
Week after week, unless they subscribe to it on YouTube.
Well, how would they find it if it's being released twice a week? I mean, that's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You should release it all at once, and then market it out episode by episode.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It needs to be all available.
I don't think they can hear you, Amber.
Huh?
It's hard to hear you. You're not
It's hard
on
to
mic.
hear you.
Oh, I just said I think you should release it all at once and then market it out episode by episode, and that's always a way you can reach out to people. But I do think it's a miss. After being in the web community for 100 years now, I've seen people release it week after week. Your episode 1, you get a huge spike. You think, shit, I won the game. And then episode 2, you have 3 viewers because nobody comes back the second. You kind of have to capture them. Unless you have a subscription or a database that you're able to always push to say, you know, episode 4 now available. Here's the link. Like I get from Hulu when Misfits season 3 episode 2 comes out, and I can click on it and watch it, or I know it's in my queue.
Right.
Does this need to be in the pitch though? I feel like this doesn't need to be.
It was something that she addressed in her pitch.
Okay.
So that's just
fair. It doesn't have to be.
Well,
it doesn't need to be in
so
the
if
pitch,
she was pitching to you, Brian, you would just change it, and you would.
Yeah, I would just say that,
it's not like you wouldn't buy the show because of that.
Yeah, no, it's something we would talk about.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's something that
Let's
perked up
move
for
on.
me. That was something that perked up for
Betsy?
me. The other thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I have one other comment.
Okay.
Which actually is
Quickly.
really more important. When you talk about cameos, because a lot of the web series I've been working with lately have famous people in them. You know, it's like okay. Do those famous people have a following on Twitter? Do they have a following on Facebook? Mm-hmm. Or do they even have a Facebook fan page? Mm-hmm. And like, I'm not joking, that's really important.
As I say, names is like web celebs is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
But you can leverage that. I think
Yeah.
it's a really smart thing that he's
Yeah.
bringing up is that if you have web celebs and they have, you know, 1 million followers on Twitter, you should say the cast alone, as it stands right now, has the reach of, you know, 5 million Twitter followers and whatever.
Together
Facebook
we
followers.
have a cloud score of 1 to 100.
Which is different than, it's about being more specific. So it's
Okay.
different than saying opportunities.
I get what
you
you're
wrote was
saying.
opportunities for guest cameos.
Right.
I want to know who
Okay.
you're bringing to the table, and not only that, but what they're following.
Okay.
is.
Betsy?
So, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't put too much stock into adding celebrities and big names to any series. Actually, it doesn't bring as much power as people think it does. It sounds cool, like a PR and marketing thing, but Amber's point, you're going to get view of the first episode, and that's it.
But if
Celebrities.
she has them, shouldn't she be clear about who they are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say, but I wouldn't put stock that they're going to bring you views.
But what I know from my experience, I do know that there are certain web celebs that if they're in anything, people are watching.
Yep.
No matter what it
Okay.
is. Felicia Day is a
Betsy?
perfect
Betsy?
example of that.
Yeah, a couple things. In terms of the pitch, I would find out as much as you possibly can ahead of time about specifically for sponsorships, about their goals.
Okay.
And what are they trying to do? Is it awareness? Is it actually they want purchasing? Who are they trying to reach? What are their products? You know, and what have they done before? All of those things are really important. I would also lead with the demographics when you're pitching a sponsor. I'd also want to know more about you and why we should be confident that you're the person that we're going to do something that we consider to be experimental with.
Okay.
Because from our perspective, you know, we're very conservative, and so, you know, we want to know that if we're going to do something experimental, we got the right person.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, when you're pitching to a brand, I would do what you can to work in how exactly you could work in that brand. And you did mention it here. Like, you know, if we were working with, I think you said Starbucks, they could, you know, we could work that in. But just, I would actually, a lot of times people in big companies don't have a lot of imagination. And so you need to actually show them, you know, oh, here, we could have them, you know, buying this product or using this product.
Okay.
Bernie?
So this is going to go back to the kind of setting, the grounding all the characters, not just your lead, but all the characters. So, and it kind of goes back to where I kind of trip on the pitch a little bit. So you pitched it as this series where she goes week to week and, you know, tries to get a different guy or tries to impress the guy with certain these kind of spectacle moments where she dresses up as Mary Poppins and stuff like that. That's great. But then you set up that there's this one guy that he's going for this whole time who's like her and wants to, what's the word you use? Make the world a better place, right? So that to me tells me it's kind of two different shows. So I think you kind of need to pick one.
I didn't pitch the new guy every week thing.
Oh, okay. Well, because you had to dress up with different things.
Well, what would happen in this show is she would go forward with the new guy, and we would have quick flashbacks to show all her previous failures.
Oh, okay.
Of her being these different characters.
All right. Okay, that's fine. So I guess then my note would be for the Tommy Jack character, who is the main guy. I don't get a sense of him either. Like, I see him. He's a good-looking dude, you know, and he smiles and and all that stuff. But I don't get a sense of what he is as the same as I don't get a sense of what Riley is as well. The same note. So it's not just for the one character, it kind of goes to the other character as well, since he's the focus as well as like what she's going for. So I understand what she's going for as well.
So in the pitch, is it too much to, like, because I thought about showing an example of what he might do in an episode and how she might interact, but I thought, okay, now we're getting too far, we're going to run too long or whatever.
I think you can kind of go in between that. It just, you all I really have from what you said was about Tommy was that line you just said. Like, that's literally all I have.
Okay.
You know, and I saw him, that's great. But I kind of want to know more. Like, is he like, is he this, but, because he kind of gives like this whole thing where he's kind of like her, where she's different and a different person all the time. Well, like, does that mean he's a spy? That question popped up.
Okay.
I'm sure he's not a spy, but the question came in my mind, and I kind of would like to see that clear.
Okay.
That this is like the dream guy, and really he's a good guy, or maybe he's not. He's a dream guy, but he's really not a good guy.
Okay.
So.
Okay, real quick for me, for the pitch itself, somewhere when you were bringing this up, I saw a slide that looked like a screensaver that had a whole different art direction to it. I don't know what it was that I saw, but it looked very clean, very polished, very professional. I just saw it for a second. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
To me, this notebook look, the rectangular squareness of this, it has an amateur feel to it. And that's cool if you're established and people know who you are and they know your track record. But if you're trying to put forward a professional feel and a professional look, I think you should put this in some kind of wrapper that looks a little bit more professional. I get what you're doing here with the notebook look and everything, but it kind of takes me out of it and makes me wonder how professional you are.
I can see that.
Just a little feedback. I think that's it that for right now for you. Thank you very much, Jenn.
Who can help her?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Is there anyone in the room that can help her? She's looking for a network, to be on a network website. This is something that we always do. If there's anyone in the room that can help her in any way, please raise your hand. We have one person here. Anyone else? All right. There we go. Oh, two.
I will talk to you afterwards.
Great.
We are
awesome. So we need to switch.
We're doing a brand entertainment series for Match.com. So I'll talk to you about that.
Cool.
Great.
Afterwards.
Awesome. Thanks, Bernie. All right. And if our panelists want to come sit down, and Jennifer, if you want to get set up. So Jennifer, one of the things before you get started, if you could just tell us who, if you want to, you don't have to, who you are, and, well, you do have to tell us that, sorry. Who you are and who you would most likely be doing this pitch to, like in the best case scenario, okay?
Okay. My name is Jennifer Bobiwash, and I just started with Concrete TP Productions. I've been doing a little bit of web stuff with other production companies, and I thought it's about time I do something for myself. This pitch, who I would be doing it for, after hearing the panel, I would think looking more for, as opposed to a network, just going directly to the sponsors to get the money from them, and I do touch on that later on. So my web series idea is The End of the Line, where the road ends and life begins. So I'm going to start out with some facts, just so you know. The US population right now is roughly 309 million people, and only 1% of them identify themselves as American Indian or Alaskan Native. So, you know, we've been discovered here in the, I mean by American Indians, because that's who this is about. There are 565 federally recognized Indian tribes in the US and only 326 Indian reservations. There are 3.79 million square miles and only 55.7 million acres of that is reserved for reservation land. Now in Canada, their total area spans over 3.9 million square miles, and it has the longest common border in the world that it shares with the US. And Canadians live within 93 miles of that. The population of Canada is approximately 35 million people, and 1.1 of that describes themselves as First Nation Original people, which is about 4%. In Canada, they have 615 First Nations, which represent about 50 nations and different Aboriginal languages and cultures. Now, 80% of Canadians live in urban areas, and of that, over 56% of Aboriginal people live in urban areas. And so they're sometimes referred to as urban Indians. But what about the other 44%? And that's who I'd like to follow. So The End of the Line is going to be a documentary series that's set in First Nations and Indian reservations to show the day-to-day living of these people in these tiny villages. The majority of these reservations are, like, I don't want to say hostile, but like uninhabitable areas where they can't farm, they can't do things like that. Or as an example, up in the James Bay, Hudson Bay area where the IAWTV First Nation is right now. We would visit these locales to discover their everyday life and to see how their heritage is being preserved, and to give a greater perspective to the world that we as an Indian people have moved beyond buckskin. Now, some questions that we'd like to consider once we give the cameras to the kids and to the people of that community are how their life has changed in the past 20 years. How are they, because they're set in such a remote area, what things are in place to help that lets them live there, and or prevents them from leaving. Traditionalists, do they speak their language? Do they practice their religious beliefs? And that. So the main characters, I would have a host every week, and so that we would be the tour guide of that locale, and sometimes we could have other tour guides, because I know people that have taught there or whatever, just to show us around. And then we would also give the children the actual camera so they could show us the slice of their daily life as opposed to it being from my perspective. My potential storyline, I'd like my first episode. This is Jonathan Chichu. He's a former NHL player. And he is a former resident of the Moose Factory First Nation in the James Bay area. So I'd like, just to walk around with him and his perspective. And then we could just visit and see the as I mentioned before, the educational, do they go to school there? How does that work? Their traditional ways, is there anything in place that they're continuing to learn their language? Are there elders? Living conditions, as I referred to before, the IAWTV First Nation right now is horrible conditions, and that's in the news presently in Canada. And I'd like to focus on that and just living conditions in general on First Nations and Indian reservations, and how drugs and alcohol play a part in all of this madness. Now, my goal is a 10-minute show, and I've looked at the YouTube channels for the Smithsonian ABC Family, Travel Channel, Lifetime, and APTN, which is the Aboriginal People's Television Network in Canada, where it's the only network that does First Nations programming. And with that, I'd also like to show videos from the children during commercial breaks of Sunday morning cartoons or online for Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel, just of these kids and how they're showing how they live in their daily life. My audience is primarily families, just to show how life is. Secondary, if there are history and culture buffs, because a lot of people, as the statistics I showed before, there's so few Indian Americans, but a lot of people identify with the culture, so that could be an audience as well. Target demographics, I didn't want to limit myself because I thought it is a family show, but it may appeal to everyone because of the content. Potential sponsors that we're considering are Via Rail, Ontario Northland. These are all travel companies that deal with these remote areas, that service these areas. Sporting goods and outdoors adventure companies such as Sorel, Arctic Cat, Off, Coleman, Ranger Boats, because some of these communities are tourist-based, and that would appeal to them, especially Off when you're in the deep woods of the Hudson Bay. And of course, the National Film Board of Canada, Tim Hortons, if you're not familiar with that, it's like a Dunkin' Donuts in Canada, and casinos as well. And that is my end of the road. So.
All right, Jennifer, stay right where you are. Panelists, if you can hop back up there. Now, Jen, go ahead and give me the elevator pitch again. Let me hear that while our panelists are getting up there.
My elevator pitch would be that the web series is a documentary about First Nations, American Indian people living on the reservations from the perspective of children.
Okay. I'm going to start off with Bernie Sue. If you can give us some notes on the idea of the series itself.
I really like it. I think it's something that, at least from my understanding, no one's doing this. It's certainly, there's an audience. There's a big interest group. There's this kind of like public service to it, which I like. I feel that if this show was made, it'd make the world a better place, right? So I really like the idea. Yeah, and it feels like it's something that, I think as someone who's a scriptwriter or screenwriter, like this is kind of against what I work in, but like, the idea of like doing something that's docu and you just kind of go out and you find the stories out there, reality style. It does play to a budget and a lower budget for an online series. So I go like, okay, like this would not cost very much, which is a good thing, and yeah, so that would be pretty much my feeling of the show.
Great, Betsy.
Great.
I thought it was definitely interesting, and I think I agree with much of what Bernie says. Couple things I would look at, and it seems like you've already done a lot of this, what other companies are kind of sponsoring or advertising in similar content. I think that's really important. I think your idea of travel companies was a good one. I think that if it's, hypothetically, if you were pitching travel companies, I would want to make sure that it has a positive spin to it, as opposed to, there's a lot of very sad stories, and you want to make sure that that's not always going to be your angle. So I would just be sure to communicate that.
Brian?
Well, to quote Tim Street, they would say that the internet is all about super serving your niche. And I think
that is a Tim Street quote.
I know. I quote him. I quote you all the time, Tim. And this is definitely a project that would super serve a niche. So I think for that, kudos. My only concern initially is that I'm sort of getting two different stories here. I'm getting like I'm visualizing a host where an adult is going into a village and telling sort of life on the farm, as it were, you know, or in the village. And then I also see the other perspective is through the eyes of the child. So so my question is it half hosted from an adult and then half hosted from the child, and that's more user-generated content from the children? And my personal instinct is that it's actually more compelling if it's from the child's point of view. And if that is the case, then I think just my initial instinct from the presentation is that it's very adult. And I love, what I was drawn to was that seeing the village through the eyes of the child. And so I think and I don't see that really reflected besides the one image of the young boy with the camera. I would like to see more of like sort of the innocence of the child perspective being caught.
Right, and I was thinking more of the host, like, as you're going into the tour guide showing, and it's called the end of the line because these are remote communities, so you know, that you have to take a train there, a plane there, however. So the host would be there, you know, to say, this is the city, or this is the city, this is the village, and just what is there. Kind of showing the doom and gloom side of it, or like the real side of it, and then you give the camera to the child so you see it from their perspective, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay, and that's, okay, so I can buy into that. Then if that's the case, if it is sort of that 50-50 thing, I think that wonderment, the hope and joy part of it, needs to be more represented in the presentation.
Okay. All right, David?
I'd like the creative, the one thing that, right off the bat, that I would do is switch around the synopsis and sort of the pitch right up front, because the 3 or 4 slides of all the data was really overwhelming, and I felt like I was in history class again, and that would be bad. So I would just switch that and then get into it. It's almost like something that would go towards the end. There's just a lot of stuff up front. And then I was going to throw a place to think about this also is maybe a WGBH, one of the PBS affiliates, because they're starting to invest in programming of this type, especially sort of educational and infotainment. So it might be a place to look.
Amber J?
I personally find it fascinating. I could see running into this on the History Channel and being sucked into 3 hours of back-to-back episodes of this. It does seem very heavy and very educational. And the first question I wrote out of the gate is, do American Indians or First Nation people congregate online? Because what I felt like is we were going to have a story that would relate to the super niche and that would help all of these communities interact. My guess is, and I don't know if I'm wrong, I don't know, do they congregate online? My guess is they don't. Is the message of what you're doing to teach those who are not connected, or to connect those who have similar backgrounds to unite and kind of grow stronger? To have hope.
Right, no, I think it's more to show, because there is a rather large community of Indian people online, so I don't think it's necessarily for them because they know how they're living or what they've lived. But it may also serve to those who don't. I refer to urban Indians. So there are a lot of people who never grew up on the reservation, so they don't know those hardships. So I think primarily my focus is towards...
Is the goal to shift the hardships, or to shed light on the hardships, or to create hope within the community?
To shed light on the hardships.
Okay.
All right. Bernie, on the pitch itself.
And this is going to probably be a kind of a note on the show. The one part that I really kind of lit up was when you brought in Jonathan Chichu. I know who that is, but I don't think anybody else in the room does. And I was like, that's awesome. Okay, you're going to take a star and kind of go back to his culture. And it's I kind of wanted you to go further down that direction a little bit and give us more examples of that, because I think if you're going to do the whole showing what it's like type thing, we want to listen to someone who we're either very comfortable with or we're very familiar with, right? So if there are other kind of American Indian stars out there that you can tell us who they are, right? And say like, oh, we're gonna ask this person next and this person next, and what it was like growing up for them, and they can tell their own kind of life stories too. So you have this like multi-layered kind of documentary. It's about American Indian, growing up as American Indian, but it's also about these people that, I mean, as a fan of hockey, I go like, I kind of want to know how Jonathan Choo grew up, but that's just me. So you would hook me in two ways, personally.
Okay.
So.
Betsy?
Yeah, I'm going to actually agree with Amber and Bernie and say that it did feel heavy to me. And so you want to give the viewers or whoever you're pitching to a reason to be engaged with it. And so picking out stories or specific examples that have a hook. And for me, it doesn't have to be a famous hockey player, but I think there's a lot of really great stories that I'm sure you could pull out. But really highlight those, because I think like when you started off with the demographics, it was like that was really heavy. Okay. And so I would discourage you from starting, even though I know I told the other Jennifer to start off with demographics, that it's so heavy that I think it may turn people off.
Brian?
Well, and so I think to eliminate some of the heaviness, that's why I mentioned Through the Eyes of the Child. Right. So I think that needs more of that element to it. Which I think would really balance out the quote-unquote heaviness everyone else is talking about. Yeah, I guess, I know I have a lot of experience in theater, and this famous theater director. What?
Keep going.
Anyway, we all know each other up here. There was this famous theater director who was in New York, who said, downtown theater people only create theater for other downtown theater people, and they're not really trying to impress anybody else. And so I guess to sort of echo, and this is my question, is Amber J talked about the intention of it, is it to shed light, but my question is, who are you really trying to shed light for? Is this for, more Anglo people to raise awareness for them, is it for the Anglo people, or is it something that is specifically for that community that this type of content they would devour? So is it, I guess, like literally I think you have to have the idea in your head, what does this person visualize what the person looks like? Who is the person who's gonna be devouring this? Is it a 25-year-old, First Nation woman? Or is it a, 30-year-old Anglo male who's in an urban city with other, so that doesn't seem to be very clear to me as to specifically, is it specifically within your community, or are you actually really trying to reach a different community?
I think I'm trying to reach out.
Okay.
To other communities, so yeah.
Great. David?
I was just tweeting your statement about theater.
Theater.
I already said the thing about the data, and I think everyone else has too. The other thing I was going to ask is, have you thought about trying to put together, even if it's a minute, 2 minutes, some sort of short video sizzle reel that's VO'd, and whether it's footage you own, don't own, like whatever, just to sort of help present visually what it would feel and look like?
I did, and just because I was asked to do this, towards last minute, I didn't have access to all that, but yes, I am considering doing that.
That's something I would invest in.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Amber J?
This is really foreign territory for me, and so, those are the questions I have, and I would really want to see. I think a sizzle reel is a good representation to get the look and feel, and to really understand what your vision is on this. And if you are looking to shed light, I would then just say, what's the outcome you want to achieve? Do you want to raise funds for these communities? Do you want government action? Do you want opportunity, employment opportunities as an outcome? Is there a message an action that can take place out of it? Because I get that it's moving, and people are gonna be like, holy, I didn't know that was happening, or, and it will shed light onto it because it's right under our noses, yet most people don't have any clue.
Right, but so do you think then, does every episode have to be the same? So I would funds, like I would be looking for funds for this community in one, government action in another. Would that be appropriate to do, perhaps?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, or this episode, you can donate to blah, 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 and that goes to this community specifically. And what you will do with $10 is build a well. Like, something that's so specific that you can go like, I'll give you $10 for a well. Okay. Like, if I have a tangible result, I just find people will take action on. People don't normally take action, but at least those who are moved by it have an opportunity to be involved.
Okay. That about wraps it up, except we are going to ask if there's anyone here that can help Jennifer. But before we do, microphone's over here. If anyone wants to come up and ask questions for the panel, start a line right here. I do have a first question already from our audience, but let me ask, is there anyone here that's able to help Jennifer in any way with this project?
Before you respond to that, I'm going to plant a seed here. A potential way you could take this project to is to not just think of it as just a video series, but as an application, like a mobile app, or like a complete built-out tablet app or OS app that we're seeing presented here today, presented 100 yards away. And if you built it out as a big app, then you have like the maps and like everything is kind of this big experience. It's a lot more work, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyone in the room? We have one. Jennifer? Another Jennifer. Look, there's a Jennifer connection here. Anyone else? All right, so the first question from our audience, someone came up to me while you were presenting. And the question is, how do you go about finding the people to pitch to? Bernie, you've had an agent, you have an agent, and you've been in a situation where you don't have an agent. How do you go about finding the people to pitch to?
How do I find the people?
How does somebody who's a web series producer that wants to go pitch, how do they find somebody to pitch to?
Well, I guess I'll just tell it from where I come from, like the way I do it. I come to events like these, I meet people like them, and if I have something I feel that potentially could fit what I know what they're looking for, I'll tell them. That's one way. Another way is to do research, is to you kind of go, I don't know if anybody from Crackle's here, but if you wanted to pitch to Crackle, you kind of look in the trades, or go to the back channels or LinkedIn, see who works for Crackle, and see if you can find a way to either reach out to them directly, cold email, or you go meet them at an event like this. Yeah, and the agent helps too.
Brian?
Yeah, I would recommend coming to CES. Last year was my first CES, and I came home with 30 leads for brand sponsors for web series that I work with. So, I mean, part of what I do, is promotion and creating strategy through social media, but there's also an element of just doing anything and everything to, make sure to achieve sustainability, to make sure that there's a second season for a person's web series. Yeah, and I would echo what Bernie said, going to events definitely helps. But yeah, I mean, also just doing research. If there's a brand you think that is right for what you're doing, getting on their website, finding out who their marketing, finding out who's the head of their marketing department. I mean, I spent many, at one point, I was calling Home Depot and figuring out who their advertising, who their PR company is, and then finding the head of that person and who works with them, and then getting their number and seeing, because from what I could gather, Home Depot has little online presence or, in terms of scripted anything. So, going after them and finding out that person and pitching them and sending them press releases, and, it's just a matter of due diligence. But I think you just have to get clear. It always starts with the intention of your web series and your target demographic. That really helps everything. And then from there, build a list of, I would actually say 6 companies, and then do research and show up to events and stock them.
Betsy, how should somebody go about contacting a brand?
I think there's a lot of research, and it depends on the brand, but I think LinkedIn is a good way if you can figure out that. Certainly networking events like this.
For those of you who don't know, LinkedIn is a social networking site for business, and you can actually pay. It's a free site, but you can upgrade and pay, and once you do that, you can contact people that you don't know and send them messages.
Right. And then lastly, I mentioned before agencies. If you can figure out who their agency of record is, which often is public information, and then contact them through their agency of record.
David?
Events, networking. LinkedIn is a good resource because you can go on and you can stalk people. And
groups, right? Groups?
Yeah, yeah. And the great thing about LinkedIn is you can see sort of who's connected by who. I would say for us from a production company standpoint, we don't take anything like a cold call or pitch. We just reject it and send it back. It's something we do.
Cold.
I know. So find, like, if something for us to look at something, something has to come in through either our agency, just CA, or a friend of a friend, or go party with Amber J and she'll do an introduction, whatever it is. It just goes back to networking, and it's not that hard. I think with the internet and digital, it's pretty simple to connect with people.
How does somebody party with you?
Follow me on Twitter, Amber J. Lawson, at Amber J. Lawson. I would say that the biggest glaze over the eyes that I have is when somebody goes, I have a great series for you, and it takes place on top of a mountain, and it's about dolls, and it's, has nothing to do with what I'm about or what I have, like wherever I'm working in my needs. So clearly it's like, come up, know who you're talking to, and know that you, and have done your research, because don't waste my time. Like, don't breathe on me. Don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, people that come up and like, I got the series for you, and I'm like, why do you have this series for me? Tell me. Like, if you have it, great, tell me. But if you don't, do not tell me, because it will go in the trash. Oh my God, how honest is that? Is somebody in here quoting this crap?
It's
oh my
recorded.
God.
Hey, real quick, anyone else for questions, come on over here. Step right up to the microphone. We want to get you recorded, so hurry this way. We only have a few more minutes.
Just to clarify that, David? You mean comedy, because you work in comedy, so...
Well, no, at AOL I ran an entire network, so that was everything across the board, but our focus was women, local, and ethnic. So, like, anything outside, I don't want racing cars, I don't want,
I'm going to add to my opening is that body of work helps as well. So having a body of work for yourself as the creator, just so they can kind of go, thank you.
Okay,
it's something reference. Go ahead.
Question.
Hi guys, I'm Avi Lujansky. I am the creator of The Further Adventures of Keepinaros, which is here with an IAWTV nom.
Welcome.
Thank you for best supplemental content. I actually kind of want to touch off what you were just saying, Bernie, in terms of body of work. One of the things I was interested in getting perspectives on from you guys was, obviously you're going to have your elevator pitch, you're going to have your verbal pitch, you're probably going to have slides. I'm also curious if you guys have feelings one way or another in terms of how much to already have done. That is, do you shoot a pilot and then go try and talk to brands and production companies? Do you shoot your first season and then try and partner to keep it going? Or is that kind of like, well, they've already established that, we don't want to deal with it. Do you guys have feelings one way or another about that?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say it's best to have an example of your work, like a pilot, especially if you're going out to a brand, because they're not going to pay for something that's already in the can. They want to participate in the creative with you. Most networks they want a proof that you can pull it off, and then want to probably shape it a bit as well, and their timeline and the things they need to hit. On the flip side of that, if you can have a season and release it and build an audience, then that's also valuable for somebody to buy season 2.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just to echo what Amber said there, I wouldn't even put a trailer online, because they will judge you against that. Like, I'm serious, like, nothing should be out. You could put a pitch website talking about it, but not even a teaser trailer, because from what I understand, people are even going to judge you. Oh, well, your teaser's been out for 2 weeks and it only has 500 hits. Why should I give you $100,000?
I actually disagree with that one.
And Bernie White.
I totally believe in shooting video because, again, we're a visual medium. We want to show. And I know what you're saying. You're saying private the video and not have it be a public release.
Yeah.
That I agree with.
Yeah, so definitely shoot a teaser trailer, but keep that to yourself. You know who you should talk to is Al Thompson, because I think he's the master of, you know, he said he wouldn't put anything online unless he was getting paid for it.
Well, he's not in the room, but
He's walking the halls.
he's walking.
All right, thank you. Next question.
I am Jeff Barber. I'm a mobile solutions consultant with Slom Consulting. And yesterday I attended the Entertainment Everywhere event, and there was a lot of discussion about episodic television and continuing storylines as being the holy grail of today's television entertainment. Here I've heard you say that it's the problem of the week format is the holy grail, and I'd like to hear your viewpoint on why.
Problem of the week, procedural format. The procedural problem of the week versus the serialized narrative. Am I understanding your question?
Yes. You got it. Exactly right.
As far as scripted content, if you go that route, or actually reality too.
Well, I think it depends on the genre, don't you, Bernie Sue? I mean, I think, you know, multi-platform storytelling is absolutely the way it's going. But in order to build an audience, having a self-contained episode is, you know, very valid. And
so is your question what the Holy Grail is, or what we try to do?
Well, I'm just interested in hearing, you know, those are two polar opposites, and I think you just started to speak to it, which is the goal is different. With a major entertainment brand, they already have an audience, and they're looking for ways that they can monetize that content over all the different revenue windows. In this case, with web television, you're trying to build an audience or super serve a micro niche audience, so it's a different objective.
If the goal is to build the audience, my opinion, you don't have to agree with me, is to go problem of the week, procedural style, whatever your show is about. You know, so hypothetically, if I was to run, using someone in the room, run Jenn Page's show, I would not completely make it over, but I would make it a problem of the week show and just stick it like that.
So it's apples and oranges in that we're dealing with new media that doesn't have an advertising budget, that doesn't already have a distribution stream to throw millions of dollars in advertising to build an audience, to get that audience to tune in. Whereas traditional media, having episodic television, they can use their current channels to promote and cross-promote that new show and launch it. And so there's a whole machine behind that. Whereas this, we're talking about rolling up our sleeves. How do you build that audience from scratch? And if you look at the early days of television, that's more of our model as opposed to Sopranos. Okay?
Thanks, Tim.
Sure. All right.
Can I speak to that just briefly?
Sure.
You know, it comes down to craft, honestly, and I think, like for instance, if I can use the example of Husbands, it's basically 22 minutes. There was 11 episodes that were 2 minutes apiece. It was like micro content. But within those 2 minutes, they really were standalone. There was like a full drama. There was like a full arc that developed in that 2 minute period. So a lot of them could stand alone by themselves. But then when you put them all together, it was a television pilot. But, you know, I think what we're all trying to say here is that your odds are better because the internet loves the viral video. And so if even if it's a scripted series, there's still the potential for that to go viral. The odds are more likely if it makes sense in and of itself in the context of the 2 minutes.
Great.
Very good. All right. Last question, Mr. Gregory Storm.
Hello. This question is for Betsy, or maybe even David or Amber. As a sponsor, what do you expect as deliverables for the series that you get behind? And then
Can't hear you.
Oh, you can't? Okay. Is that better? Okay. As a sponsor, what deliverables do you expect? And then can you talk specifically about numbers or give examples of shows that you've sponsored or that you know of sponsorships that as a sponsor or as a brand that you want from the creators and sort of the going through the experience?
So the thing is that everything's negotiable, and because this is an emerging space, unfortunately, there's no set anything. It largely depends on, again, kind of going back to what is the sponsor's goals. Is it, for example, awareness versus sales? So in terms of, the metrics, the key metrics that they're looking for at the end of the day, is it views? It might actually be sales. It might be, traffic driven to a particular website. It might be signups for a certain event or a certain white paper. There's too many variables, and so I apologize that it's I would be happy to offline talk to you about what you're trying to do and kind of give you some ideas and some directions about things that you might suggest for key metrics that you could pitch with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, I got to cut it off. So if you have any more questions, feel free to approach the panel. Big thank you to the two Jenns. And remember, if you can help them, please help them. And don't forget the International Academy of Web Television Awards Thursday night.
And Al Thompson's in the room.
You can watch it on YouTube, live stream. And Al Thompson has just walked in, the man with a hat.